Hi. Okay. There we go. A little snafu. Sorry for the few seconds of if you're watching this live, if you're watching this recorded, welcome, welcome, welcome. My name is Dr. Rock. That is pronounced R-O-C-K and spelled R-A-K. I am a lifestyle medicine physician. I help people make health improvements and take control of their health and change their life using lifestyle changes. We reverse chronic disease, we prevent most of the chronic disease that we take care of in this country, and generally lead to a more happy and fulfilling life. And today I'm here, my weekly live stream here every Wednesday, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, talking about resilience. So, mastering the art of resilience and how you can bounce back stronger. And I want to sort of unravel the layers of resilience. I know it is something that we can actually harness. And when we pay attention to it and the qualities and characteristics that make up resilience, we can actually develop more resilience. So, first, I'll talk about that. Like, why would we even want to think about this? Resilience. What is resilience? It's not only just bouncing back. It's, bouncing back is kind of the baseline, coming back to where you were. It's more than that, right? It's actually thriving and growing, and not despite the challenges, but actually because of the challenges, right? So, talk about this a lot, but challenges and discomfort, those are opportunities for growth. In fact, it's when we have discomfort and when we have challenges, and we don't always, sometimes we can choose those difficulties and challenges. I'm training for a race in later this year, and I went for a run this morning. That's a challenge that I chose. But there are challenges that we can't choose. So I've shared in my newsletter and on my podcast. My wife was diagnosed with breast cancer last August, and these types of things are inevitable for all of us, right? I heard something yesterday that you're either in a problem or just leaving a problem or on your way to another problem. Life is just full of challenges. That is the nature of our existence. So first understanding that, right? That we're going to have challenges, and then that there's this ability for us to not just withstand them, but also um, persevere and thrive and actually come out better and stronger in the midst of challenges. Um, I'm going to talk a little bit about, you know, how to develop resilience, but I thought just reflecting on my wife's journey for a moment would be instructive. So I remember in August when we found out, and I instantly, as with most people, like I went into this place and this space of fear and is very stressful, right? Very stressful. And I think when we talk about resilience, it's ultimately like how we deal with stress in our life. Think about a metal that's resilient, and you keep bending that metal and it doesn't break. And that's kind of what life does to us. That's kind of what this diagnosis did to all of us. Uh, and very quickly, like within a few days, um, and it was intentional. I saw, my wife was just embracing the positivity that was within her and around her. And she was focusing on that. And she was focusing on hope and optimism and her strength and all the blessings that she has in her life. And living in that space, it pulled me out of a darker space, right? It pulled me out of a pretty dark space. So there is this power in our mindset, that the way how does she do that? She she, she was very, like, frank with me. She would get up early. I mean, she gets up early. She would get up early and do these very long, kind of silent meditations. She's sitting for an hour sometimes, just seeing all the fear and the anger and all the emotions that were coming up, and acknowledging them and feeling them and letting them go, and then really paying attention to how she was talking to herself, really paying attention to, like, the thoughts that were coming up. And we're gonna have, negative thoughts. We all do. And it's that, I'll talk about self-talk as, I think, like, one of the cornerstones of how we think about our resilience and how we kind of harness it. But um, that's sort of the why of resilience. Okay, there's stress, and we're going to deal with a lot of stress. The what of resilience, the kind of what makes up resilience, and I just find this fascinating. Right? Is you know you can say it as a term. It sounds very sort of generic. Resilience. Oh, okay, someone's strong, right? But there's different components, and components that have sort of been studied and elucidated. Um, one of these is emotional awareness, right? So it's this understanding, of your emotions, and then your ability to manage them. And I think back to my wife. I think to my wife, like, understanding how she was feeling, right? Really, like, sitting with those feelings and those emotions. Um, and you can cultivate emotional awareness in, meditation, or just sitting with your thoughts and feelings, and just observing them is a great way. You don't have to call it meditation. It's really what you're doing. I mean, people do that on a walk. People will do that in quiet time. I had a colleague who told me, when she came home from work, the first thing she did was kind of go to the kitchen or wherever, and some space where none of the family was, and just needed an hour. She needed an hour to just be in silence because she had such a busy, and then after that, she was good. And in those moments of silence, just kind of sitting with what is, how you're feeling, what happened today, how did it affect me? I myself, have shared this. When I started my meditation practice 7, 8 years, I think it's 8 years ago now, and I don't know, lose count. Um, it was in my car. It was in my car for 10 minutes before coming into the home. And there's in my newsletter this week, I talk about mindful transitions as a awareness activity. It's the moment, where you're transitioning. You're going from work to home. You're going from and you may have dealt with a lot of stress during the day. And so it's giving yourself a moment to just acknowledge that, acknowledge how you're feeling, acknowledge, and then also to just let it go so that you can be present into the next phase of where you're going, whether it be with your family, or going to a meeting, or you're going to see a, a friend. It really doesn't matter. It just allows you to acknowledge what is, and then be more present as you move through the day. So that's emotional awareness. The other Another component of resilience um, is social networks and connection, right? That is huge. You think about when something happens in your life, right? You have a loved one who passes away, or you have an illness. How important it is to have relationships with people who are there to support you. And so for us, I mean, this was very obvious. As soon as my wife got the diagnosis, it was like family, friends. My in-laws live very close. My brother-in-law lives very close. They were just, my in-laws were basically staying with us, and just there to help and take care of us, and any way that they could. And we had so many friends, my family, um, just constantly checking in. People, I mean, I had my friends checking in on me all the time. Still are. Still are. I mean, we're still going through it. My wife is doing quite well. She's had chemotherapy and she's about to start radiation, and she's doing really well. So thankfully, it was caught early, and she had surgery to have the cancer removed, and then chemotherapy to prevent it from coming back. We're super grateful about that. And like in the midst of it, when we were doing all the testing and everything, we didn't know that uh, it was these things. It was having this support network. Um, Flexibility is another component of resilience. So you think about like how if you're very rigid in your expectations of how you want certain thing to go, and um how many people were disappointed in 2020? It's almost, you don't have to say it, like this wedding got canceled, this birthday got canceled, whatever. So many things got canceled, right? And apologies, my dog is barking in the background. If you hear my dog, he's protecting the house. He's doing what he was meant to do. Um, so that flexibility is huge. And I think about, my son was 5, was he 5 when the pandemic started, my middle son, and we were gonna have a big party, birthday party with his classmates and everything. His birthday's in March. And of course the party got canceled, right? It was at the end of March. And he decided he wanted to have a fancy birthday. What do you mean by that? It's like, what do you mean by that? And he wanted everyone in the family to, it was just the 5 of us. He wanted everyone to dress up. And so we did. Like I wore my nice suit. I think it was the suit that I wore to my wedding. And he wore a shirt and tie, and my youngest wore a shirt and a bow tie, and my daughter and wife had nice dresses on, and we had this fancy meal. It was, I don't remember what we ate exactly, but we ate it on like our nice plates, and then we went for a walk in our fancy attire outdoors. And it was very different than having a big birthday party with all his friends. And yet it was one of the most special and memorable parties. We still talk about it. We have a big photo actually from that day where we're all dressed up, or the kids are dressed up on the wall. And so I always look at that and remember how special that was. And he could have, and we all could have just been like sitting in our disappointment and said, no, well, okay, we can't do that. So what can we do? Um, so cognitive flexibility, um, and and then I would say perseverance. So so perseverance is the ability to keep going despite stress, despite challenge. You keep going. Doesn't mean you're going at the same speed. Challenges or stress, if you get sick, that's going to slow you down for sure. That's going to change things. And that mindful awareness is understanding, where are you right now? Like um where are you in terms of being able to navigate the situation that you're in depending on the circumstances? And how do I continue? Like, how do I make progress in the midst of this challenge? How do I keep going? And sometimes there's sort of like, mixed blessing in a challenge. If you don't look for it, you don't see it, right? And our mind expands what we focus on. So if you focus on all the negative, if you focus on all the things that are hard and difficult, then every opportunity that your mind has to point out an example of that, or to look for more examples of that, it'll do that. It's our RAS, our reticular activating system. It's our part of our brain, our prefrontal cortex, right? It there's so much information coming in all the time. So how does it know what bits of information it should actually bring to our conscious awareness. Well, it's the stuff that we tell it is important. So if I'm constantly thinking about why something's hard or difficult, or then that my mind is going to just constantly remind me of that and look for opportunities to make that more prevalent in my life. And then alternatively, if I'm looking at the opportunities around me, the blessings around me, all the good things, in spite of the challenges, my mind's going to do the same thing. It's going to look for more and more examples of that. And it's going to seek out those opportunities. If I see an example of that, I'll notice something that I might not have noticed if my mindset had been different. So this kind of, I think, transitions to the how of resilience. And it's the last kind of piece I'm going to talk about, is like, what are the actionable tips one can use to build resilience, right? And so I'll start with just talking about self-talk and fostering positive self-talk, right? So self-talk is the just what it sounds like. It's what you say to yourself. And we're constantly talking to ourselves. We're constantly have a narrative and a storyline. We are constantly thinking in the frame of a story where we are the main character. That's how we're wired to think. And so the question is, what is that story? What is the story that is running in the background? And so the first step is just becoming aware of your self-talk. You can become aware of it yourself. You can also ask people who are close to you in your life to call you out if they hear you engaging in negative self-talk. I have a very good friend, Melinda. Hi, Melinda, if you're watching. Who, when I talk to her, she's incredibly adept at listening. She's such an incredible listener, and she will hear when I say things that are disparaging, self-disparaging, and point them out to me. Not in a judgmental way, not you shouldn't be doing that. Well, maybe, I shouldn't be doing that, but in a way so that helps me build awareness. And you do that with yourself too. You can put prompts, places where you remind yourself to kind of listen to your self-talk. That's the first step, is just becoming aware, because we have it already. It's already going on, and you may not be aware of it. Many of us are not. That building that awareness. I'm a big fan. That's why, of sitting in silence, meditation. I think if you don't have any peer, or going on a run or going on a walk, whatever it is, something where you can sit with the thoughts that are coming up and just observe them without judgment, and observe them in a way that allows you to explore what's going on. And then how do you change that self-talk? Well, it's changing what you say to yourself. It's recognizing I said something negative. One of my friends told me, every time you say something negative, then say 5 things positive to yourself. That is the ratio, in fact. Um, that's a different, I won't say that. But uh anyway, so yeah, you say like a few things that are good, when you think of something negative. Or you think of something negative, and then um you say to yourself, cancel, 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 like, I'm not going to think that. Just because we have a thought doesn't mean it's true. We have so many thoughts about so many things that they are contradictory. There's no way that our thoughts are all true. They are many of them are just passing clouds that represent what we're feeling and thinking in that moment. And so just acknowledging that, and then deciding, okay, I don't want to think that way. How do I want to think? And then just saying positive affirmations to yourself. You say positive affirmations. Um, Dr. Shad Helmstetter, famous author, motivational speaker, has written many books about positive self-talk. And he has an app. There's a membership. I think it's $20 a month. I used to do it. or you just listen to scripts basically. You do that 10, 15 minutes a day in the background while you're doing something else. Actually, that's the preferred way. What I found is you can just like search on YouTube for self-affirmations of whatever area. It might be self-esteem, it might be financial success, it might be in your health, it might be whatever, and just play those in the background. Play a YouTube video in the background. Your brain hears it. Your brain hears it, and then it's sort of running in the background. It starts to become, if you do that frequently enough, after a few weeks, those start becoming your thoughts. And one thing I noticed uh, when I've done kind of listen to self talk in the background consistently is like when I'm doing my meditations, my meditation sessions, like the thoughts that come up will start to change. Like I'll start to see there's like a month or two where I was listening to self-talk on being more organized. And so it was all about, positive affirmations and statements about how organized I am and how and I just remember I remember my like habits change, like my behaviors changing. Like I would just like notice things were cluttered or disorganized and start to pick up things. And it's cool how that can actually change your behavior. Okay. So that's self-talk. And then, uh, you know, kind of underlying resilience is this idea of how you can thrive through challenges is developing a growth mindset. So it's like viewing the challenge as an opportunity. You know, nobody wants to have bad things happen. Nobody wants to get cancer, right? Nobody wants to be wrongfully imprisoned. Like all these bad things happen to people, and this is where you can wallow in your misery, and you don't have to, right? So that speaks to the importance of like just really doing self-reflection and saying like, what is it? Who is it that I want to be? Like, what is the person I want to be? And then making concrete action, intentional effort to actually be that person in the midst of a challenge. And you may not be able to operate at full capacity, like you said, you may have to slow down, but you have that perseverance for a reason. Uh, we talked about the importance. So next, how, in terms of how, so foster self-talk, develop a growth mindset, really like acknowledge and nurture the relationships in your life, the support network that you have, and especially when you're not in the midst of a challenge. That can be when we often uh, lose sight of those important people and don't put in the time and the effort to strengthen those relationships and to support those people, right? And actually supporting those people in our life and nurturing those relationships, that feels really good. You can think of it like an investment that's going to be your support in the future, but that feels almost transactional. It's really that, being that support for someone else actually gives your life more meaning and purpose and feels really good. And so if you look at it that way, then you don't have to worry about having strong relationships when the time comes. You've already solidified those in your life. Yeah. And then I would say another piece of resilience that this kind of makes sense is to like practice self-care, right? So to have, right? So resilience is our response to stress. And you think about all the other sources of stress that could be contributing to your life. So not getting good sleep, or the quality of your diet, or being sedentary, not moving. All of these things actually improve our ability. Well, they reduce inflammation in our body, they improve our ability to respond to stress. You all know this. Anyone watching right now knows when you get, 3, 4 hours of sleep, you feel terrible. You feel terrible. And how do you deal with stress or challenges that come up during the day, right? Every little thing then becomes harder. Everything becomes harder, and the people around you feel that energy. that you put out because you are stressed beyond just the challenge that you're dealing with. Your body is stressed physically, mentally. And so, you know, taking care of yourself, and I say it over and over again. I say it to all my clients, I say it to all my patients, I say it to myself. Self-care is not selfish. Self-care is not, I mean, can be if you're going on a spa weekend every few weeks and leaving your, your partner and your kids, or but if you are doing things intentionally and scheduling them in your day, in your week, in your life, that uplift you, make you feel better, improve your outlook and your mindset, then those things are only going to make you a better version for everyone else in your life. So, don't view it as selfish. Schedule those things. Schedule time for movement, schedule time for meditation. Put it on your calendar. Put it on your calendar. It's just as important, I would say more important than any other meeting you have, is that self-care. So put it on your calendar. And it, beyond that, um, just notice how you feel when you haven't slept well, or when you have slept well, or when you've eaten a meal that's full of colorful and rich fruits and vegetables, how good you feel. Acknowledge how good you feel, and recognize that that is one of the most important things that we have control over in terms of how we manage stress and deal with stress. Um, and then I'll end with the last tip, which I mean, kind of, um, I've kind of said this throughout, but it's really embracing change. It's really going from a place of fear, and anger, and those. You're allowed to feel those. We're all allowed to feel those things, but it's like my wife, it's like acknowledging those, like I've had to do so many times. It's acknowledging those things, and then going to a place of acceptance, right? When we think about like the stages of grief, but then even beyond acceptance, it's going to a place of growth. It's what's been labeled as post-traumatic growth, right? And so that is how we become adaptable, and how change then propels us forward, right? Okay, so I want you all to think about how, leave this session, if you watch this video, like just how you might change your self-talk, and what's one small thing that you can start doing to build your resilience, to be maybe strengthening a connection that you have with someone, making time to call that person, whether it be scheduling some self-care, that something you really enjoy and uplifts you and improves your mood. Just make time for it. And I appreciate all of you. I appreciate your time and your attention. If you are interested in working with me directly, one-on-one, as your lifestyle medicine doctor, you can also work with me as a coach. I run coaching groups. Visit my website, rockyourlife.com, and sign up for my newsletter, Rock On, and listen to the podcast, The Health Feast. And I appreciate all of you, appreciate your support, and I will see you back here next time.